Hey folks, Alex Jones here reporting for INFOWARS Nightly News. Coming up, of course, is Aaron Dykes tonight, sitting in with a lot of key information, dealing with Homeland Security going ahead and moving forward to put up hidden microphones and cameras in street lamps all over the country with AI systems recording everybody. That's coming up. Also, like something out of Idiocracy, they now take your children. If you accidentally drink a milk or eat a sandwich when you're at the grocery store buying groceries, as we've all done, and then forget to pay for it when you're going through the line, your kids are gone. It's over. The state is a predatory group that wants to prey upon you. It's a narcotics trafficking, murdering group of criminals that bring the drugs in and hope you use them so they can throw you in their private prison. That's how modern slavery works. But I'm done talking about that. Here's my big stack of news, okay? Here's my big stack of news. We're going to put some of these articles over. They're reporting that Greece talking about having a referendum on totally selling out their sovereignty to the EU banking cartel could bring down the euro. That's how the banksters get you into a crisis like our 2008 crisis and then hold the public hostage for tens of trillions of dollars, or they'll create a depression. And they threatened martial law, war on the streets a few months ago of Greece, who supposedly owes $100 billion, which is really mainly derivatives that Papandreou, the former Goldman Sachs operative, and his finance minister signed the country onto. Well, after 6 months of rioting and the rest of it, and VAT taxes being put in to pay for the austerity, as you know, last week they passed the euro debt deal, which is $1.4 trillion, for $100 billion. Greece owes. No, that's just a way to blame it on the people. And they're going to leverage it out at least 3 times to close to $5 trillion, which is just money given to the big 6 mega banks who've openly said they want an undemocratic system now in Europe and austerity. This is the new dictatorship of the EU. And all these countries want to have referendums. Most of the countries have never been able to have referendums. Their governments just sign them into this. England was signed into the euro. And now over 80% of the public are demanding it. And David Cameron said 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister, he's not going to allow them to even have a referendum. So we've got that going on right now. And here's the big news. Here's why I'm doing this special report that will air right at the beginning of INFOWARS Nightly News this evening. It's because Zero Hedge was reporting, and I actually went and looked it up. It's in the Athens newspapers. It's true that Papandreou is talking about firing the entire Joint Chiefs of Staff of Greece because they're not going to go along either with the bankster takeover. We know Papandreou's in the banker's pocket. Or has Papandreou had a change of heart because he knows rebellion is on and the collapse of Greece and a total overthrow of the government, which a lot of experts say is about to happen. And he's trying to just stave it off to have a, quote, referendum and then try to steal the vote to get it. Or has he woken up and the military wasn't going to go along or something, and so he's about to kick them out? I mean, you're looking at major coup, counter coup. We're not sure what's going on right now, but it's wild. We're talking about the collapse of the euro or the birth of open world government as the Pope calls for a bank of the world run out of Europe that stops the evil, corrupt bankers, but is run by the evil, corrupt bankers. You got Time Magazine calling for a bank of the world. All this stuff is happening. All this stuff is taking place right now, and it's so incredible. There's a quickening happening. I'm gearing up for the big 24-hour plus hour transmission that kicks off at INFOWARS.com with all these guests. We'll have video streams, audio streams free to the public. In fact, it's already up right now, and the prelude to that, the INFOWARS Nightly News, is posted at INFOWARS.com, and the 24-hour marathon section article. We're also streaming it at Justin TV, Ustream, and tomorrow on our own system, free to the public, because this is a big media event with a whole bunch of guests joining us. It's going to be extremely powerful information. So that is all coming up with that information, but these are the insane times. And it's just going to get crazier and crazier and crazier as open world government is pushed on everybody. And it's just mind-blowing to see this happening. In fact, I'm coming to a red light. Maybe I can just show you some of these articles. I mean, look at this. Federally funded streetlights capable of recording conversations, or Orwellian IntelliStreet system now being installed in major cities with your tax money. Texas is launching taser drones with Homeland Security funding. I mean, it's just criminal government going wild. Wall Street firm spies on protesters and tax-funded center. AP, pregnant mom, sandwich arrest was horrifying. CPS took her kid. No criminal record. Law bans cash for secondhand transactions. And then I've got Papandreou calls for this special election referendum, because the Greeks will have EU enforcers making sure all the new taxes they raise, sales tax, VAT, is being paid because the public's rebelling against it. And they don't owe it like Iceland or Ireland. I mean, that's what's incredible is Iceland finally said no after a year, and they got the documents, and over 90% of it was owned by the very banksters that were telling them it's your national debt when it's not. It's the derivatives. Make them take a total haircut. We don't owe this. You know, the globalists take a $100 billion haircut or 50% of their bonds from Greece, and then they get $5 trillion in exchange. I mean, it's just, you're always told it's one thing and it's another. Okay, that's it. The main nightly news is coming up with Aaron Dykes, and again, it's free for everybody. Spread the word about this. It's got to be listener supported so we can pay for the infrastructure and the crew and everybody who's doing a wonderful job. And we're beta testing it for television right now, so you're really funding the true revolution in alternative media. But for the next 3 days, we're going to have it free in the video box at PrisonPlanet.tv. It's up there right now. At InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. The box is up there right now where you can watch all the shows, including today's live radio show I did, /TV. You can find it. It's all over the site. Spread the word about it. We had 3.5 million views when Aaron and Watson were... Aaron Dykes and Paul Watson were at Bilderberg this year covering it, just on the Justin TV channel. We want to get millions watching for the money bomb extravaganza of information warfare against the tyrants. Okay, folks, that's it for this transmission. More with Aaron Dykes coming up, but again, spread the word about the money bomb coming up. That is this Thursday, 11 a.m. Central, 12 noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Mountain, 10 a.m. 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Mountain, and it's going to go for 27 hours from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. the next day at the end of the radio show. And I couldn't do it without all your help and support out there. We're really fired up about this, so please spread the word about it. The globalists are coming down on us like a ton of bricks, but for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You are the resistance. If you're watching this transmission, you are the resistance.
Thanks, Alex. And this is the InfoWars Nightly News. Tonight is Tuesday, November 1st, 2011. I'm Aaron Dykes sitting in. And, of course, the top story tonight has to do with Greece and Papandreou's announcement calling for a referendum sometime early next year. But many people in his government believe that the government itself may not last. Many have called for Papandreou to be ousted. They've called for new elections. And so the Daily Mail is reporting that the Greek referendum could kill off the European Union as well. Many people are questioning if Greece votes no on the referendum, that it would trigger a default, which would unravel the entire Eurozone and the euro itself. And so everyone is upset. They're saying that Greece political class has failed to even persuade the Greeks of the need for spending cuts and tax rises, let alone convince them they've got the detail right. Don't let them tell you the cuts aren't real, that austerity isn't being implemented in Athens. It has been dictated by the EU and IMF, and goes on to discuss how the popular mandate, how a no vote could unravel the entire EU project. Already, Labour peer Lord Solé is calling it the economic equivalent of the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo in 1914. This is a banker-created crisis, but it could have big repercussions for all the world's markets. Just the announcement of this referendum has triggered market plunges across the board. Meanwhile, Greece, Papandreou in Greece has replaced military chiefs, a number of high-level members of the military, including the heads of General Staff, Army, Navy, Air Force, and discharge a dozen or so other officers. And that really is part of a larger coup, counter-coup within Greece. We're not sure exactly what's going to happen, but they are reshuffling here. The majority for the Socialist Party is down to a razor-thin majority of only 2 members. One member just declared himself independent today, drawing that margin even closer. And really, everything could hinge on this, even though it's a Baker-created crises. And Papandreou himself, a Bilderberg attendee, would sure like to know what they discussed there as these bigger problems loom. And, of course, Herman Van Rompuy, the EU president, and Jose Manuel Barroso, also head of the EU, are pretty upset about it, and they're sort of implying that we trust Greece will honor the commitments they made in this deal last week. But, of course, the Greek people are up in arms about it, completely upset. And that's why many believe Papandreou is doing this just as a political stunt, a ploy to maintain power, as there are calls for him to step down and a whole lot more. We'll keep an eye on that. Alex will be covering it in detail tomorrow. In other news, Operation Armas Cruzadas has been revealed to be a Department of Homeland Security run, Janet Napolitano herself's own version of Mexican arms trafficking, this one openly with cooperation from the Mexican government. The Attorney General himself is known to know about this. You saw her testimony last week. We're going to play it here in just a moment, where she denied any knowledge of the Fast and Furious scandal and really refused to talk about anything related to it at all. Now, we know there's all kinds of operations going on like this, so-called stings, where they're really just arming the Mexican drug gangs, allowing them to ship in the cocaine and other drugs. We know about the Sinaloa cartel in particular being given alleged government immunity. And, of course, the corrupt Mexican government and the corrupt United States government are in on all these cartel activities. And, of course, they have numerous smokescreen operations like Fast and Furious designed to look like they're targeting the drug gangs while only fueling the problems and making them worse, among other reasons, to target the Second Amendment. And that's Janet Napolitano. Let's play that clip now.
When did you learn of Fast and Furious for the first time?
I learned of it after the death of Agent Terry.
And when did you learn that gun walking was part of Fast and Furious?
I would say sometime between his death and the early spring.
To your knowledge, has anyone ever communicated, or did anyone communicate with Mexican authorities that guns were being allowed to cross our border into Mexico in contravention of their gun laws?
I can only speak for communications that I know of, and I know of no such communications.
Correct, yeah. So someone at the Department of Justice had to know about Fast and Furious for the T3 to ever have been approved, correct?
I just can't comment. I don't know that there was a T3 approved in Fast and Furious.
If there were a T3 approved in Fast and Furious, and there were, the Department of Justice would had to have known about it, correct?
I'm going to leave that for your own investigation, sir. I'm just not going to comment or go beyond what I know. And what I know is that after the death of Agent Terry, the Fast and Furious label became apparent, and we became knowledgeable about it. Obviously, there were problems with the operation. Obviously, it did not succeed, and the Inspector General has that under investigation right now.
And that's Napolitano last week saying, well, I'm not going to cooperate with your questions. Just try to get past the national security wall and figure out what's going on. Of course, it was also revealed that there were similar operations under the Bush era. And really, this is just classic Iran-Contra type behavior that's been going on in the shadowy parts of the national security state for years. Now, here's a clip from Napolitano back in March of 2009.